Thank you, Kathleen. Now, another of our special guests, Genny Lim, was inaugurated this month as San Francisco's 9th Poet Laureate and is the first Chinese American to serve in that role. Born and raised in San Francisco, Genny is the second generation daughter of Chinese immigrants. A graduate of San Francisco State and Columbia University, she has been widely awarded and punished. She is poet, playwright, performer, educator, activist whose work centers on the Asian American community, specifically Chinese Americans. We're thrilled to have you with us, Genny.
It's truly an honor to be here amongst you, and I really enjoyed learning and hearing what you've all had to say this morning and this afternoon. And Bruce's piece was a perfect preface to what I'm going to share about the commencement of colonialism and settler colonialism. The old world. In the garden I will die. In the rose bush, they will kill me. Federico Garcia Lorca. Before the ships came with their gunners, muskets, and cannons, with their powder, shots, and shells acquired with paper money and credit in a foreign land called the Old World, the foliage was thick with toucans, cockatoo, parrots, dolphins, and turtles, unafraid of humans. They swarmed and cavorted in the waves. The trees swelled with ripe jackfruit, papaya, and mango in this jungle of quiet content. There was a century of art and magic, gold-leafed codices in sacred glyphs, waiting to be learned, now burned. Musicians, shamans, painters, poets, prophets, whose lives flashed with the morning glory's brief bloom, slaughtered. Their brown gods mutilated. We were waiting to be born in the dawn of extinction, in the moonless night of iron bullets, horses' hooves, shackles. They say that crying originated in loneliness, and from crying came song. The hair of warriors who shot their arrows and sang songs to the Creator as they stared into the cannon fire, unflinching, was scalped with their skulls hung on poles. They would follow the Lord of Dawn in their perilous journey to hell. They said you could hear their crying songs echo in the night. The chief had given the order to kill themselves before being captured. They thought of home, recalling the days of their youth when, desperate in love and passion that ignited them with the flames of 1,000 lightning bolts, they had the power to seize thunder, and now they were lovers trapped in the ill winds of time, singing their last songs, the end drawing near with the rope tightened, dangling from the noose of an enemy whose rapacious hunger never seemed to cease. The map of the world was drawn in a heartbeat with the blood of the ancient world, now named the New World, a world of black thunder, a world inherently white. Tears would end this world. To be unhappy in love is what it is to be an exile, a refugee. The only death that kills is exile. They would not surrender. They would not stop being born from the roots of the Ceiba, from the 13 roofs of heaven, from the mountains to the sea, from the pyramid of memories beating in the bleeding heart of the jungle. The scream. I felt a large scream pass through nature, Edward Munch. How would Munch have known 135 years ago that soundless howl, that cry of anguish concealed in everyone and everything, like some wild, wounded beast captured in beeswax, paraffin, and gum pastels. The self-annihilation, that powerful and beautiful natural order of things receding into chaotic flight in recoiling terror. Only the crows and gulls seem to know their sinister caws and flapping of wings etched in things to come. How did we come to take this route? If the screech of crows sounds like the scream of someone being hung, the scream of nature is the sound of madness, a river at its breaking point, an earth-shattering roar, limitless and inhuman, sweeping everything away, fragmenting memory, dispatching death without justice or partiality in the time it takes a pot of water to boil. The cry, the scream, the howl. War. War is madness, you ask yourself. What lies beyond the power of a bomb, beyond the artillery of words, beyond the firing squad of the liberator who hands you a map in exchange for your land? What is empire but the slaughterhouse of dreams in a kingdom of illusion that feeds the hungry ego? The president yells, "Rise!" beating his chest in the custom of chief guerrilla, and everyone rises. He raises the flag of victory over the wounded and countless innocents as if their blood was the biblical parting of the Red Sea. War doesn't forgive, it repeats itself in the delusional formula of its stunted imagination. To usurp history from nature, to conquer her law of cause and effect, as if killing was heroic and fighting the endgame for peace. War is death stowed in malignant bowels, its mangled limbs, smoldering roofs, iron windows that only bullets and bombs penetrate. It is black clouds of meaningless, destitute suffering in a demented fever for power from which history will lose with its blind possession of memory. From here to Gaza, death never saw itself coming. Only the eerie silence just before heaven blew up and the olive trees burst into flames. At that interminable moment, all the exits of Gaza were sealed, and the key to your home became a souvenir in the mausoleum of your dreams. When the roof of darkness caved in, the Sea of Galilee turned red, and there was nowhere to go. Time was a thief of your memory that froze. Little did you know the terror in your heart had been there all along from birth, like a little mouse trapped in a cage. Little did we Americans know that the distance from here to Gaza was an illusion and that the border between Palestine and Israel did not truly exist ever except in fiction. History is occupied territory, and whoever lives to tell it is the victor. There are no more lions, only hunters with a power over life and death. What is left? Only stories of the flower of Jericho, only the place where Jesus fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. You've nothing but stories to fill the empty Temple Mount. Your hunger echoes in its desecrated ground and through the tunnels of insurgent prayers, never to be satisfied until the river returns to the sea and the right of return is reality. You know that moment when life returns with the infallibility of spring, because your spirit will soar on the chords of the wind and life will know itself becoming. Photograph of Gaza. A little brown girl crawls out of the abyss of her home. From afar, she could be a sparrow blown from a nest, or a frond severed from a charred palm. She's crawling inch by inch. with her broken wings. She cannot stop crawling in search of spring. She cannot stop digging through the rubble with her ashen memory, trapped at the bottom of an abandoned well by the stone steps where perfumed lavender and rosemary once swelled in her nostrils, where the smell of her mother's taboon once streamed through the kitchen window, and where the sunflower once lifted her bright yellow face towards the burning heat of 1,000 suns in search of dawn. This one, Not in Our Name, I collaborated with the incredible muralist Juana Alicia, and we mounted it in Clarion Alley and several spots along near the BART station in Oakland and in the Mission. And her illustration has all these women holding up shrouds of bodies, and Not in Our Name. Everywhere in Gaza, people are gasping, dying of hunger, for there's nothing, not even a tiny piece of bread in the desert of ruins. Everywhere in Palestine, mothers and children are dying of thirst, for there is not even a drop of rain to eke from these dark clouds of oppression. The length of a day to a dying child is 1,000 years, for childhood is buried in a nameless white shroud. What lives in Palestine lives not at the mercy of men, but in the courage of resistance. For what is the sound of the heart breaking? It is the sound of a mother's cry. For what is the sound of devastation? It is the wind howling through the olive trees. It is the weeping of mothers mourning childhood lost in the shadow of bombs. And why? History closes its eyes but does not answer. The thief has banned truth and kept the world hostage. Keep going. What lives in memory lives in the unvanquished hope of return. What lives in the heart lives not in form or memory, but in eternity. We will exist. And what lives in infamy lives not in our name. Thank you. I collaborated with Him Mark Lai, Judy Young, who unfortunately both passed away some years ago, in a collection of poems that I translated with Him Mark Lai from Angel Island. They were written in Chinese, and we translated in a book called Island, Poetry and History of Chinese Immigrants on Angel Island from 1910 to 1940. And if you want a copy of the book, over on the left, Harvey Dong and B. Dong are coming from East Wind Books, and they have a few copies on hand. It has the oral histories of the Chinese, and they are really the first Chinese poets in America. And so it's a very important history, and their poems are very important for that reason. And you will find out that they are not the passive model Chinese Americans that we were taught we were, that they were quite enraged about the Chinese Exclusion Act and how it really vilified them as heathen Chinese, and there's a long history of that. And it sort of, for me, culminated in some way with the anti-Asian violence that triggered by a lot of the rhetoric coming from the far right and Trump. So this piece, Requiem, is about memory. Memory is a grieving mother searching for her lost child. No one knows that inside of her is a rose that never dies, a truth that burns through the sleepwalk of time. Beyond the fallen trees and swollen branches of figs is a girl who lives in the clouds. Her dark eyes roam the night, and the moon and the stars will echo her sad stories. Even the wind is afraid to sigh, lest she stops remembering. What binds the noose from the clansman to the hanged man? It's fear. But what issues from a wound is the same blood, often of the same mother or father, though one is destined to crack the whip and the other to groan and shuffle. Memory is a horse in search of its rider. If not for that cat's cradle of illusions, that contraband history written by thieves, who would argue the beginnings of things, the names of things before they were renamed? The unholy spark of revolt on a Birmingham Sunday, the jet black emptiness inside of a slave hold, the ring of gunshots in a safe house, at the border, at a checkpoint on a city street. Memory is a grieving mother searching for her lost child. No one knows that deep inside her is a rose that will never die. A truth that burns through the thorns of time. Beyond the fallen trees and swollen breeze is a girl who lives in our imagination with dark eyes that own the night. The moon and the stars hang on her every word. Even the wind is afraid to die, lest she stops remembering. And that is the role of us artists and poets. We can't change the world, but we could protect the memory of our people, of the oppressed. And if that memory is lost, there's nothing to save, there's nothing to protect. The Heart Sutra is called the Prajnaparamita Sutra. Einstein decoded the sutras and tantras. E equals MC2. Energy and mass are of one thing and can change into each other. Outer space is inner space, and inner space is outer space. Form is emptiness, and emptiness is form. Emptiness is memory. Memories are shadows cast in the footprints of time. Without memory, there's no history. Without history, there is no self to suffer the wounds of our losses in our flesh and our hearts. History isn't big enough or long enough to carry the caskets of collateral despair, to the march of battling hymns, to the war drums beating from the armies of profit and illusion. Caesar, Napoleon, Hitler, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, Ukraine, Gaza. Like footprints in space, the smoke of burning empires race to extinction. E equals MC2. There's no birth, no death. The white lotus rises from the ashes of karma, from the charnel ground of sorrow. The fallen awaken in the resolute dawn to grieve, sing, love, and resurrect memory. Form is no other than emptiness. Emptiness is no other than form. Gate, gate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. Gone, gone to the other shore. Paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. The river is wide, I cannot cross. Neither do I have wings to fly. Give me a boat that can carry two, and both shall row, my love and I. Love is gentle and love is kind, the sweetest flower that ever grew. But love grows old and waxes cold and fades away like the morning dew. There is a boat that sails the sea. She's loaded deep as deep can be, but not as deep as the love I'm in. I know not how I'll sink or swim. This is an Irish song about migrations, and either we migrated this long trail for thousands of years with the DNA that we all share as one mankind, as one family, and hope we find our way back to our community, our family. I'm going to end with this piece, The Eye of the Needle. It's a Hafez-inspired poem. It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. Pharaoh, we are at the desert's end. Like lonely birds, we carry the weight of the ages, the bones and particles of our songs and memories, the rivers and valleys of vast continents and eras, born on our 2 wings. Pharaoh, we are like blind men unable to see the needle, much less able to enter its eye. Let the camels go before us. Let the sheep follow suit. The rich are loath to touch the hand of God with their hands already full. The blind cannot see his hand, much less its light to give them wisdom. Pharaoh, we are at the Nile's end. Let the divine music of your soul lift the burden of our hearts. Let the haunting rhythm of your invocation ululate on our tongues and enter our bodies like oxygen. Dear one, come. Please, dear one, come. Thank you all very much.